He is a husband, a father of 9, and a former U.S. congressman and TV anchor who on January 28th was sworn in as the 20th Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. We sat down at his offices to discuss the many transportation challenges facing the country, including air travel, rail, and highway infrastructure, as well as the future of DEI. Here's my interview with Secretary Sean Duffy. Secretary Duffy, thank you so much for the time. I have to start with, when you first came in, there were these series of tragic air accidents at Reagan Airport. You had the military helicopter hitting that American Airlines flight. Then in Philadelphia, you had a private plane go down. What did you think, having just been sworn in, suddenly you have to deal with these encroaching disasters?
Well, it was not the way we anticipated our tenure starting out, but again, what it did, Raymond, is it put in focus the mission of the department is safety, right? And listen, I talked to a number of the families from the DCA crash who lost loved ones, and if you can prevent that, if you can have policies in place that save future lives, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. And so, with DCA, again, that was really day number one for me. And again, we had 85 incidents in the last 3 years where we had really, really close calls between helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. The FAA should have known. We should have seen those stats, seen those numbers. Why did it
take so long for the FAA to ban? You have banned the military aircraft operating within the sphere of Reagan Airport.
Right.
Why did it take so long to figure that out?
It was a crash, right, that did that, but the FAA could have seen the data before, right? And sometimes it's easy to look back and see data as opposed to looking forward. We're using AI tools to analyze the data and see other hot spots in the country to make sure that we don't miss anything, moving forward. But again, I think you had pilot error. Pilots are supposed to stay away, see landing aircraft, stay away from landing aircraft. They didn't in this situation. Obviously, we had an air incident, but just to be clear, we're going to allow the president to obviously fly through that airspace. If there's a life-saving mission or a law enforcement mission, they can fly through the airspace. But if that happens, we shut down air travel. You do not have helicopters and landing airplanes together again crossing paths. No more at DCA.
The other day at LaGuardia, a plane was taking off and the wing scraped the tarmac. We've had 4 of these major incidents of aircraft and assorted other ones, the crash landing in Toronto and other things. How do you reassure people that air travel remains safe? I know there weren't as many crashes or incidents as there were in the last year before you came to office, but how do you reassure them?
Well, the media follows this now after DCA, right? And you lose 67 souls. They should focus on it. But air travel is the safest mode of transportation. The most dangerous part of your travel is from your home to the airport, not from the airplane from destination A to destination B. So that's key. But what's also important is it's made us look at the system as a whole. How does the air traffic control work? What systems do we use? How old is it? And it's been a call to say, listen, this is 25 and 30 years old. Let's fix it. Let's fix the system before we lose lives because we have such an old system. We're not. What we're seeing is, I think, we're seeing a lot of pilot error, right? We're seeing mistakes by pilots. They got to refocus. They got to pay attention to safety. Again, everyone around you, on your plane, but also at the airport, other aircraft, all of them have a trust that everyone puts a premium on safety, and we have to remind them of how important their roles are.
Tell me about the FAA. What is happening at the FAA? You, I know, have spoken out. There was this story, I remember we covered this years ago, where a union head of I'll read you the name, the head of the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation, he leaked answers to African American candidates for air traffic control jobs. So it was kind of a DEI fix that was in. You said you're going to investigate that. What else do you plan to do?
So there was a DEI effort under the Obama era. The Congress saw that. They snuffed it out, right? But there's been a lot of stories that have come up making accusations that DEI still exists at air traffic control. And so we said, listen, we're going to do an investigation to give us the information about, are we actually getting the best and the brightest, or is there other factors in play? Because, when I'm flying, or you're flying, or our kids are flying through airspace, I want the best air traffic controller. I want the best pilot. I don't want you to hire for anything but the best and the brightest. And if you're bringing people in for other factors, you have no place. Maybe at a university, which I'd object to that too, but if a university doesn't take lives, but air traffic controllers and pilots, this is critical. And so we've said, not at all. Best and brightest, that's it.
Lives hang in the balance.
That's right.
Every day. You were just at Boeing, I saw the other day, the aviation manufacturer. There's a cap, there's a federal cap at 38 planes per month of those 737 MAXs after a series of disasters. Let's face it, with the doors flying off, bolts not properly attached. What assurances have they given you that this will get better? And what is the federal government doing to check the current fleet that I flew here on?
So listen, as I went there, when you take down the number of planes they can produce a month, it makes them focus on safety in the planes that they do produce. When you slow it down. But over COVID, they lost a lot of great experienced people who did the manufacturing at Boeing. And so they're bringing in new people and they have to train them up. And so by the slowdown, I think they're gonna get to the place where they're gonna be able to expand that production. But right now, I feel pretty good about the numbers that they can produce. Again, this is a great company. It did lose its way, and they were focused on the bottom line and quarterly profits as opposed to engineering and technology and machinists building airplanes. They're getting back to that, but again, it's a cultural change they have to make. And they've started, and when they get to the point where we feel like they can go to the next level, we'll allow them. They're not there yet.
You've been running all over the country. I saw you the other day at Amazon. You were at the Amazon Prime Air. They're launching these drones all over the country to deliver goods. I mean, you call them up, here comes the drone. The FAA is petitioning to allow more drones in the airspace. Sean Duffy, why should we do that? The airspace is already congested. It doesn't seem we can handle or control the airspace we oversee now. Why do you want drones flying through it?
Raymond, come on, you're gonna get your package, within 30 minutes. The drones are safe.
But I don't want it hitting my aircraft as I land.
No, so there are blackout zones around airports. Again, they fly at no higher than 400 feet. So when the FAA allows drones to fly, they're gonna fly in areas where it's safe. We don't have 747s coming in. We don't have Cessnas coming in. They're lower to the ground. But again, we wanna make sure that they're fully tested and they're gonna be safe. But it's not just the safety component. People are concerned about the noise factor of these drones. And there'll be a lot of room for communities to decide, do you want Amazon Prime to come in? What does the community say? If they say yes, let's let them come in. But to think that, let me just think about this for a second. We have a revolution. This is my cell phone, it's cracked, but this changed the way we live.
Yes,
right? I can book flights here, I can bank from here, I do social media with you from here. It revolutionized. We're gonna revolutionize air travel in America, how people and products move, whether it's autonomous vehicles, these eVTOLs or Uber in the air, and drone technology.
Do you have controls of those robots we see running through cities? Is that under your dominion?
No.
No?
Those
rolling robots?
If they're on our public streets, our federally funded streets, yes. But a lot of that is being dictated by the communities that are allowing for those to roll out.
Neighborhoods,
But we're going to change the way we move and the way products move, and it's going to make it more efficient. It's going to make it faster. But the key is, if we don't have rules and regulations in place that allow the innovators to innovate here and test here, and then once they get approvals to build their products here, they're going to China, they're going to go to India, they're going to go to somewhere else, and we lose the technology, we lose the innovators, and we lose the manufacturing. So these are future jobs and future technology that we want to keep in America, and that's why our role is to make sure the rules keep people safe, but allow them to continue to advance in the technology.
And innovation. We remain on the forefront of the innovation.
That's right.
Before I move on, and I want to talk to you about policy in a second, a pet peeve. Should the FAA, we have so many rules about flying. You have to have you only can have 2 bags, you can't take
That's
this
the
in,
airline, not the FAA.
Okay, but there are federal rules. You got to stow your bags before takeoff. That's an FAA rule. What about a dress code in the air? When people are running around in flip-flops and slippers and pajamas, shouldn't we have a higher standard in case of an emergency? I look at this. This is not your den, or your slumber party. Should we have an FAA dress code for the passengers?
You can take private air travel for that. You can wear your suit, double-piece suit for air travel. Listen, again, I think we have to be respectful. And it's culture, right? The culture matters. And how do we treat the people around us? Do you put your feet up on the elbow rest in the seat ahead of you?
Cut your toenails, which I've seen
listen,
in air.
There's a lot of bad practices. But that's not an airline FAA problem, that's a cultural problem. It really isn't. How are we teaching our kids to be respectful of the people around us? How do we behave? How do we dress when we go out into public?
Yeah.
And so that's what you're working on, Raymond, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Drop the hammer, Secretary. You control the airwaves. Anyway, the airways. Okay. You issued a statement rescinding some Biden-era policies that stipulated that any future road construction or highway construction would have to be bound by social justice and environmental concerns. First of all, why did you do that? And I know there's remaining funds that were already appropriated to end racist highways, which is what your predecessor called some
Raymond,
of our highways.
Everybody, Democrat or Republican, they want roads and bridges. Infrastructure matters to every member of Congress, every senator. It doesn't matter their political stripe. And so I looked at, what kind of rules do we have in place around building roads and bridges, building infrastructure? And there was a ton of green requirements and social justice requirements. And it drives up the cost of the projects, which means I get less roads and bridges. So if I can pull the green and the social justice out and focus the money on roads and bridges, that means I can build more roads and bridges across the country, which is what everybody wants. And so, again, this is just common sense. Again, we're the Department of Transportation. We're not the Green New Deal Department. We're not the Social Justice Department. We build infrastructure. So get that stuff out of these proposals and these funding mechanisms and build infrastructure.
In my city of New Orleans, we talked about this at the time. There's a Claiborne overpass that runs right through the middle of New Orleans. Your predecessor, Pete Buttigieg, declared that a racist part of the interstate system because it cut off a black community. When I went and talked to the people in that community, they said, wait a minute, that's our only conduit to the rest of the city. But the Congress appropriated $1 billion to tear that down and replace it. Are you going to follow through with that? Do you have any jurisdiction over that?
So first of all, we're responsible for federal money that flows for roads and bridges, comes out of this department. And again, I don't want to tear down existing roads and bridges and to put them somewhere else. Again, maybe there's some remedial efforts we can take to reconnect communities. But again, this was built 40 or 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, how does that process work? Again, there are so many projects that we need to build.
Yeah.
Let's focus on those projects that make our lives better. I mean, how much time do people spend in traffic and congestion, right? If I get people to work faster and back home faster, you get to spend more time with your family. You might have time for a family meal together with your kids. If I get you home faster, which means I reduce congestion, which means we're investing in that infrastructure that can move people, not in this stupid stuff that the last administration focused on.
You took some heat because you came out with a memo that said we should prioritize those communities with higher marriage rates, higher population. That's where the money should go. Now, some people say, wait a minute, this is like China. Your response to that? The People's Republic of Duffy.
I did get blowback on that, but it's common sense, right? Where people get married and where people have kids is where we're going to see growth. And where you see growth, you'll need roads and bridges. This is not the only factor. This is one consideration I said we're going to look at because, again, family formation and having kids is where you'll need infrastructure. And so it would make sense. Why would anybody object to us looking at those factors?
Yeah.
Now they made fun and said, well, maybe you're going to have to go to Las Vegas. A lot of investments in Las Vegas because a lot of weddings there. I'm like, okay, come on. But where those families live and where they have kids, that matters.
That's obviously where growth is going to happen, and those will be in rural areas or just outside of metropolis area, Gotham areas where right now a lot of those funds are going. One of them is New York City. We give billions to the New York City Subway Authority. You have a problem with the money we're giving to New York. I know you want to look at their crime statistics. Why?
So the federal government gives millions of dollars a year to New York for their subway system, right? And one of the components that we're supposed to look at, which the last administration did not, is their crime stats, right? What do they do in regard to safety? And so if you look at the New York subway system, or go to DC or go to Chicago, pick any of them, but New York specifically, they're dirty, they're dangerous. People stand against the wall in the subway because they're afraid of getting shoved in front of the tracks. People are getting stabbed. It's a homeless shelter inside of the subway system in New York. It's not safe. And so why would we actually invest our federal money into a system where the politicians there don't seem to care about safety?
Well, now Hochul says she's got cops on every overnight train, New York City cops. They put state police at the stations. Do you not believe
Well,
her?
I would tell you this, that right now, the crime incidents are 56% higher now than it was in 2019. So crime's not going down, Raymond. Crime is going up. So maybe the effort is so great, but listen, securing the subway system, getting the homeless out, stopping the drug dealers and the people that are causing harm, it's not that hard, right? This is pretty easy stuff. Elon Musk just launched a rocket to save astronauts. That's hard. Securing your subway system is not. And so I don't see that they've had a will to do it. And so if you don't do it, we're going to pull money. By the way, they should be responsive to the community that demands this. They want this. They shouldn't have a threat from me to hold back money. It's good government to have safe, clean trains.
It's justice for their citizens.
But if they won't do it, we'll do it for them. By the way, Raymond, they want people to ride trains. They don't like cars. They don't want you in your car. They want you in a bus or a train. Well, if you want people to ride a bus or a train, make it clean.
The buses are packed
Make
because
it
they're
safe.
afraid of the subways.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really
Shameful.
bad. Speaking of trains, there are calls to privatize Amtrak. We've seen this in other countries where they've gone bust, frankly. Critics of that idea say it will reduce routes and lines and drive costs up. Do you support the privatization of Amtrak?
So this is a role for Congress. Congress has to make the decision. Do they want to make it private? Or maybe there's a cross section. You know, we keep the
hybrid.
Well, we keep the rails in the public sector and put the trains on that are private. People can bid for those. But the Congress has to make a decision, right? And there's a lot of politicians who love train routes that are not financially feasible, but for taxpayer money. Again, they have to have that argument and that fight, and I'll do what they say. But right now, it is what it is. And by the way, if you look at Europe, it could be a lot better.
This is true. A lot better. There were reports of a dust-up between you and Elon Musk at that big cabinet meeting a few weeks ago. What was the context of that? Was Doge asking to cut air traffic controllers?
So
Is that what it was?
let me tell you this. Elon and I spoke after the cabinet meeting. We had a great conversation. But I'm not going to comment on the cabinet meeting. It was a private conversation, and it was robust. It was a good conversation. And by the way, what Doge does is they see things that I normally wouldn't see. They see where we have redundancies. They see where they can help us look at contracts that are useless. And so to save money and make our government more efficient and effective,
they're looking at everything.
Really wonderful. They're a great tool. And then we implement what makes sense here at the department. So we've come into a really good relationship, and I commend Elon Musk for willing to take time away from his businesses. But also we've seen with the stories around Tesla that these vandals are burning these new Teslas because they disagree with cutting and making government more efficient.
And you've had, what, 400 layoffs here at the Transportation Department?
There's 45,000 plus employees at the FAA. So we laid off not temporary, but employees who had been there for less than a year. That's 0.8% of the workforce, Raymond. They weren't safety jobs. These were not Boeing inspectors. They weren't air traffic controllers. Actually, we hired more people into those positions.
You've got a lot of missing air traffic controllers, though, right? Is that a crisis?
So we need more air traffic controllers, right? There's not enough of them. But to be clear, if we for some reason have 4 people call out sick in one of our areas, you'll see delays. You'll see cancellations. We don't fly unless it's safe, right? So again, never think that, oh my gosh, there's a limited number of air traffic controllers and I'm not safe in the air. Of course you are. But the key to all this, Raymond, is building a system with air traffic controllers and the best technology it's going to reduce the congestion in the air. We're going to be more efficient in the air, which means less delays, less cancellations, and happier Americans, which is what I want, Raymond. I want you to be happy, and I want America to be happy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Secretary.
You're welcome.
I'm happy already. Let's talk about you personally. You were here in Congress for many years. You served. You were going all the way back to Wisconsin on a couple of flights to get home. So you intimately know the hang-ups, the process, the problems of air travel today. I know you had the birth of your youngest daughter, Valentina, who has Down syndrome, and I know you and your wife, Rachel, wanted time away to kind of be together, and you'd moved to New Jersey so you could be together and care for your daughter, and it was working out fine. What happened when the president called and said, Sean, I want you to come back to D.C.?
Listen,
Was there any hesitation?
I talked to my family about it, right? I talked to my kids about it. And we kind of walked through, what does the schedule look like? How does my time at home change with this new job? Yeah. On the presidential side, I knew this was going to be historic. I knew the president for 4 years has been thinking about how he can be bigger and better and even more effective in the first 4 years. And to be part of it, Raymond, has been the most amazing honor that I have ever had in my life. I work more, I do 12, 14 hours a day. And when crises, I work all day and night. But it is the best work because you know what we do? We truly do impact people's lives. Yeah. How people move, how fast they get home to their loved ones, how safely they travel, how quickly they get their products. Our whole economy comes through the Department of Transportation, and to be in a place that can make it better for people is remarkable. And so my kids have been incredibly supportive. And again, a lot of time on the phone, on FaceTime. Technology is really beautiful. Yeah. I anticipate I'm going to have more time to get home on weekends. Yeah. This first stretch has not been that, but I do see having some time to be able to get home or having them come down to D.C. and be with me. But we're navigating it. And by the way, public service, it's not just the individual that serves. Families serve. It's a family commitment to do these jobs, and it is an amazing honor to serve in this president's cabinet. I mean, I think he's, if not the greatest, one of the greatest presidents that have ever lived, and to be part of it is, I pinch myself sometimes.
Before I let you go, there was a viral video of you and the family praying the Hail Mary before your confirmation. How does your faith sustain you? I mean, when I see you out on the Potomac in the middle of the night, I'm like, I saw him on Fox and Friends this morning. Now he's still up at 2 a.m. in the morning. These are long, harrowing days, I know, and when you're dealing with tragedy, how does it sustain you in the midst of all this?
Listen, like you and your viewers, my faith is very important to me, and I think that when you're called to service and called in times of crisis, you don't do it by yourself. None of this happens by yourself. You have someone walking with you, and it's important to tap in to your faith. I bought a place that's right near a Catholic church, and I was looking at a number of places and decided this is probably the place a half a block away from the Catholic church. But it's important, and that was before the confirmation hearing. And I just thought, we're gonna take this moment to say the Hail Mary before we walk in, because there's a lot of bad things that are happening. Yeah. There's a lot of forces that are at play, and I want to make sure I'm with the right force. I'm going to walk the right line, and that means I have to remain centered, which means I have to be focused on my faith.
Well, I wish you the best, Mr. Secretary, and we'll see
much.
you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Secretary Duffy and his staff for making that interview possible.